Now on the last tape we were working on about 7 projects at once. The biggest of which was we had already broken in and flown our 65, and this is a bar stock 65 now in Miss Ashley, and we want to do some fine-tuning of the Venturi, and I wanted to put a little dissertation of what I've learned over the years and what might be real helpful or useful information, so that you can use my experiences to your benefit in the future, tuning your plane and understanding how the Venturi affects the motor run. So let me put a couple of storyboards out here of things that I've learned, and not from some college course, from being out at that field 3/4 of my life. Now, just in its most basic sense, the Venturi, if you drive your car, and I'm sure everybody has experienced this, and you want a basic understanding of what the Venturi does, it's like the gas pedal in your car. It's the gas pedal with certain limitations. Now, in a car, if you want to go a little bit faster, you could put bigger wheels on the back of the car. That would make it go faster at a given speed. But you have this variable that's in a lot of ways, not every way, but in a lot of ways like the Venturi that we have in a stunt motor. Now, what would typically happen in a car if you were going 40 miles an hour and you wanted to go 45 miles an hour? You'd press down on the gas pedal. You'd just push down on the gas pedal. When you do that, the carburetor size changes, or the fuel injection map changes. You're giving the engine more air. In an old-fashioned carburetor, you're probably taking a Holley or a Carter carburetor apart and seeing there's a flapper valve in there. Well, for our understanding, if you just have this basic idea that Venturi is a gas pedal. Now, I said before, there are limitations. There are definite limitations with a 2-cycle engine. If you take any 2-cycle engine, and it doesn't matter what brand it is, what size it is, the variable part of this is pretend you had a carburetor. Whenever you're dealing with a Venturi, pretend it's a carburetor. And you could change the size at will. The same way on our 4 strokes with a Zetron, we can control that. Well, we can make the air entry bigger or smaller, thereby allowing more air in or less air in. There's limitations on it though, and these are the real limitations. If you make the hole too small, you won't use enough fuel. You won't have enough to cool the engine or to lubricate the engine. If you ran, let's say, a 100 Venturi on a 60, you'd probably wear it out, or in some way it would run very hot and you'd damage it. If you make the hole too big, when the hole is too large, the motor gets unstable. And the symptoms would be you'd come out of a maneuver and the motor would keep wanting to run fast. It would typically not want to come back into its 4-cycle mode. That would be the initial thing. It would go probably use too much fuel. It would be the opposite end. It would be running too fast. You'd be putting no pitch in the prop. So the point to make here is we're trying to find the correct size, like buying a pair of shoes. We know where too small is. We know where too big is. We want to find that midpoint right here, where the motor typically will have a good 2/4 brake, use about 6 ounces of fuel a flight, and again, this is a 65. And finding this can be a little tricky. It's not as simple as you initially think. Now, the reason you can't make a motor, you can't realistically make a motor with a given Venturi size. Now, obviously, you can do it if you have a Fox 35 and you're willing to just change the prop constantly, or change fuel, or change some other variable. But we're only dealing with the Venturi here. So the reason you can't, for instance, Richard Oliver can't ship every motor with the correct Venturi in it right from the factory is you're dealing with a thing called density altitude. It's the 3 H's, hot, high, and humid. For instance, if you were to send this same motor to Alaska, it would wind up with a little tiny Venturi. You send this same motor to Colorado, here's what's going to happen because of density altitude. Reno's even better. The Venturi's going to get a lot bigger. You send this to a real hot weather area. As it gets hotter, or you go up on a mountain, or it gets humid, this needs to be bigger and bigger and bigger to pass the same amount of air through. Now, rather than make this real scientific, and I'm not so sure I'd be the one to explain it I'm trying to make something that's relatively complicated, simple to understand. Not something simple, make it sound complicated. And this is difficult to do, but bear with me. This is really useful information. When you move, if you took the same motor and we went to fly to Nats in Alaska, we better take some small Venturis with us. If we know we're going to go to Colorado or Reno, we better take some big ones. And if we're going to somewhere where it's really hot, let's say that we went to what would be the hottest place, I guess, Tucson. To maintain the same performance, you'd need almost three different Venturis. Now, Richard Oliver has sent the motor through with a relatively small Venturi, and that's a good idea because it's a lot easier to take a drill or a reamer, and there's two ways to do this that I think are correct. A small Venturi is good. You go out to the field like we did the past couple days. You go out to the field and the plane is running 8.5 minutes on 6 ounces of fuel. Right here, there's a tip-off. It's not using an ounce a minute. Whoops, this is not good. Any motor that doesn't use an ounce a minute, you have the possibility of really having a problem with the motor. So what we're going to do is open it up. Now what we're going to do is do it incrementally, a little bit each time. Now when we did the original, this was the GMA 50. We started out, I believe, in the 170s. It might have been 177. I'm just going to make these numbers up because it's not important. And what George and I used to do every day, I'd go out to the field and take out another 10 thousandths, and we got it. I have this on video for somebody, and boy, was it time consuming. And we went to I'm just making these numbers up, 207, I think it was 207, and we wound up at 228 with a spigot. Now, with a spigot, the number drops slightly, probably 5 or 10 thousandths. But by doing it incrementally, rather than just grabbing the biggest drill we had, what I could keep track of is how much the fuel consumption was going up. And each time I did this, the 2.4 brake got more distinct, and we got to a point, and I believe the point was bigger than 228, where the motor got unstable. And so we went back to the 228 with the spigot, and that's where we wound up with the Jet 50, a 228 with a spigot. Now, I did the same thing when I got the GMA 60, and I did it on video. I did it very meticulously, did each one, and I wound up somewhere around 220, I believe, with no spigot. I'm gonna have to go mic these up and check them. But the whole point is, if you're patient enough to go a little at a time, you'll see each time you do this, it's like stepping down on the gas a little more. It'll use a little more fuel, the brake will get harder, and it'll make more power. And then at some point, this is windy stunt logic, you have to find this point where it falls off the cliff. Otherwise, every motor in the world would have a 350 or a 400 Venturi. It would be, at some point, it's going to get unstable. So we're going to, the next couple of days, and we're just going to do this once on video to show the steps that are involved. We're going to very incrementally take this to where roughly the motor is using an ounce of fuel a minute. We get a 6 minute motor run with 6 ounces of 10% GMA fuel, Power Master fuel. Now that's just my little system for doing it. That's not the only way to do it. Now once we get the Venturi in the ballpark, that'll be step one in this evolution. The next step is the compression. Now with the Rojet 65, we have plenty of gaskets we can shim up and down. But what's going to happen? This is really a fine tuning. This is like having a micrometer. The Venturi is like having a yardstick. The Venturi will control the 2/4 brake a lot more than the compression, but you need to get the Venturi right. And the reason is if the Venturi is too small, you can change the compression all day long and it'll never have a 2/4 brake. This part is the first part that has to be right before you go on and do compression. Now once we get this, and this would vary again with temperature. Hot days would be high. Cold days, you could add a gasket. Well, this is a whole nother phenomenon. But we want to have all of these choices, because what we're really trying to do, even if you took the motor as shipped the day we got it, it'll fly the plane, it'll do a stunt pattern, and you can just put less fuel in it if you don't mind wearing it out. But I'm really cautioning people, a motor that doesn't use an ounce of fuel a minute isn't getting enough cooling from the alcohol or enough lubrication from the oil content. And if you're using something other than GMA PowerMaster fuel, even more critical. Because some of these RC fuels that have substandard oil content or quality, you can really fry a very expensive piece of equipment in a hurry on a hot day. The sequence that I like to do these things in, again, I like to get the Venturi using my 6 ounces of fuel. Then I like to fine tune. This is the rough thing. This would be almost like feet if we were doing it with a measurement. This would be feet. Compression would be inches. And the props is thousandths with a micrometer. So these would be the 3 variables that we're going to, and of course there are others. You can use fuel, you can change glow plugs, you can move the pipe in and out. But these are the 3 major things that we want to take the motor that we got, which is really good to begin with. And if you didn't do any of this, you'd still have a relatively nice stunt run. But what we want to have is to push this to the limit, find out how big the Venturi can be before it drops off, find out how much compression we have before the motor run starts, you start to lose it, and then we have a whole box of props to test, and hopefully at the end of this we'll have a really good fine tuning for this plane, and we will have upped the performance from what we originally had with the 60 that we had at the Nats. I'm not so sure as I look back over those flights that we had that the motor run hurt us in any way. But I know we can make it better, and if you're always committed to the fact you can make it better, fine tune it more, you'll, first off, if you enjoy this part of it, and I do, it's useful information. So in other words, as soon as I figure out what's going to work for me, I get pass this on to Rich Jacobone, who has a 65, or Bob Lampione, or anybody else, anybody that's joining the program. Once I get a prop pitched and it's real comfortable on my plane, I make a gauge, I can pitch other ones. But somebody's got to cross the pond first. And it'd be ridiculous not to thank Richard Oliver, who put up the money and the time and the energy to get us in the ballpark. And now the fine-tuning part is really not that difficult at all, because we're not starting with a pylon engine or with something crazy. We're starting with something that's really in the ballpark to begin with. Now the Venturi shapes that I've come to use and use them successfully, these were the ones that we used on Tiger 60s very successfully. They had a flute on one side. The needle valve would go right through the middle. And a typical shape that would work well on a Tiger 60, a typical size would be anywhere, in my opinion, from about 300 to about 315. Anything bigger, you needed pressure. Anything bigger than 315, you kind of needed muffler pressure. If you put on a green air filter, reduce it by 10 thousandths. So you'd have this variableness, very easy to vary. If you were to run a 315 and a green air filter, you could kind of fine-tune this right at the field. Putting the air filter on softens up everything. Taking the air filter off, it'll use a little more fuel. And that was the basic setup that works so well on Tiger 60s. Probably wondering, well, how many Venturis could Windy probably have made in his lifetime? How could he possibly have known this? Well, we still have about 10,000 of these left. Anyway, these were in the 70s and 80s. These were the standard issue when we sold the Tiger, we usually sold 4 or 5 of these drilled to various diameters. Now the kind of venturi we're using is called a true venturi. It's the one PA uses. Several other engines over the years have used this type where the needle valve mounts outside the airflow and it feeds in. Original Tiger 46s came this way, and what they did is the needle valve mounts in the back of the engine. I'm not making up, this is not Art School 101. The fuel would then flow either around the whole perimeter in a series of holes or in one giant hole, which is the way a jet works. It would have some kind of a fluting back here, some kind of a fluting here. But the most critical thing is that in the area where it picks up the fuel, it's the smallest diameter. And as an example, this is one of the things that can confuse the issue. A lot of people that I've seen that make their own venturis, they do this. And they put the needle valve here. Well, that's not optimum. Optimum is to have this the smallest diameter and have this flare out so that at the location where it's sucking fuel, it's the smallest diameter that will see, or that it's in a tube. And this was Big Jim Greenaway's feeling, and Noel Drindak too, by the way. Feel a flat area and having that right in the middle is optimum. So you have a couple of different ways to do this, all of which are fine, and it's really up to the person who's fine-tuning to make a decision how he wants to run this. You can see of all the Kest motors, if you look in there real carefully, you'll see there's a spigot. It's a relatively big venturi. It runs the fuel through here and a spigot out the middle. This was a George Aldrich little thing that we tested, and it worked very well. Basically the same GMA jet motor, a much smaller venturi, and no spigot. And these two ran pretty much the same. The spigot, when you have a spigot, you need to open this up an appropriate amount so it still flows that ounce a minute. That's the critical thing. The jets we're experimenting with, some of these had, the ones from George had a much bigger flare on the top of them, and Richard has toned that down so that it was a lot easier to get the air filter on. But the whole point is, all of the work that went into this, hundreds of hours went into this to get this to where it is now. And the objective is with the, in fact here you can see something that we had on this particular motor. We had a venturi at one time that went right through there, and I remember videotaping that. We've sealed that up with JB Weld, and this is still one of George's signed custom motors. But anyway, there's several different ways to approach this. Now the way I'm going to approach it with the 65 is I'm not going to put a spigot in. I'm just going to keep opening up the hole roughly 10 thousandths at a time until I arrive at a spot that I think is going to suit my needs as close as possible. What we're going to do is pull a motor out of the plane. The venturi is shaped like this. And what I'm going to try to do is I just want to make a storyboard. Here's the entry point where the fuel would enter from the motor. The needle valve is over here. What I want to do is with a taper reamer that puts that angle on, I want to very carefully open that up, and then I want to come in from the top so that the smallest point is exactly where the fuel feeds in. And the easiest way to do that is with a taper. A taper reamer has a taper to it. So you can cut material from both sides and just watch where that mark that's going to come out. You'll always have a line where the taper reamer joints come together. And right here, that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to take out about 10 thousandths for my first test, but then I'll be ready. And I have a handful of these venturis, so if I go too far, I can just go back. Now, the other test is, you're at the field, and you want to know if the venturis, you can make it bigger and gain anything. Well, in our case, we always use an air filter because at the field, it is a dust bowl. You have your green air filter. Well, for one flight, you can take the air filter off. And if the run gets better, open up the venturi a little bit, 5 thousandths, 10 thousandths. as long as you're not running out of fuel, and as long as the main thing that you're using that ounce of fuel a minute, I don't think then you're in any way risking the motor. So let's pull that engine out and get started on this little project. It's really handy to have if you're going to change venturis, needle valves, or whatever. Is some nut drivers that fit, real inexpensive, all standard sizes. Just makes it a lot easier to do the work. Nothing worse than grabbing these things with pliers and just butchering them up. Now another thing that's handy to remember is when you're unscrewing the needle, don't just grab it with pliers and pull it through. You strip, these are very fine threads on there. Kind of unthread it, put a little pressure on this. It's a real precision thing here and beautifully made. Now, what I want to do is get a micrometer and see, just see where we're starting off with this. It looks like it's 197. A better way is to just go get a drill that slides through and then mic the drill. We're somewhere around the 190s here. Almost 200 it looks like. So what we're going to do is ream this out to about 210. Best way I know is I have a drill that's a press fit in there. Then I can mic the drill. No, I get a 185. This mic might be off 1,000. Yeah, it sure is. Probably 187. 185. Anyway, beside the point. Now what we're going to do is I want to ream this out because I can see this is a straight shot right up to the hole, so I can ream more from the top than the bottom and still maintain that little area right in the middle. And this, I just take the slightest little cut at a time. Again, I want to maintain that high point. This whole thing worked out is I just need to loosen the engine bolts. I don't even need to take the engine out of the plane. I put a little scratch on the with the engraving tool so I know when the hole in the needle valve is facing forward. That's just for convenience. Again, I want to make this tight, but I don't want to have it so tight that I'm stripping it. It's only brass. For the test sessions with the actually trying to zero in on what our final venturi size is going to be for this hot weather, I leave the tube in the plane, just leave it plugged up. Then I can run pipe pressure, no pipe pressure, back and forth. The reason is at some point in time, if you make the venturi too big, and we're certainly not closing in on that yet, at 200 thousandths this is not going to be big at all. But at some point we are going to get it big, and by hooking up the pipe pressure, it'll tone it down just a little bit. The same way when you go over 315 on a Tiger 60, having a muffler pressure or pipe pressure, as the case may be. In Mike Kajeski's case, he's got pipe pressure. But having all these choices, we want to have choices in the next couple of days while we tune this. Well, all that's left now is to hope that tomorrow's test day goes well and that we have some decent air. And as we sneak up on this venturi size, and I don't know how many steps it's going to entail, we're obviously not going to be doing it over and over and over on camera, but we'll try to give you a little feeling for just what I think the final result is going to be when this test thing is done. It is hot out here. Whew. I wish I was a fish. Could go underwater to stay dry. From the field with the first test, what I thought was significant. When we opened up the venturi to 200 thousandths, the 2.4 brake got a little bit better, marginally better, but it still didn't get unstable. Then took the whole plane apart right at the field with the reamer, went to 210. This got better. Again, fuel consumption went up just a little bit. We were running way over 8 minutes stock. We're getting more down in the ballpark. I ended the test day, ended day one at 220. Now I think we can go more. I have the plane set up so I can retrofit pipe pressure right at the field, but this first set of tests shows me the direction that for me, now keep in mind, it doesn't mean that the motor is wrong. What it means is you got to suit this, like buying a pair of shoes. You got to suit this to suit the size plane, the props you're using, and the way Rojets are shipped is a perfectly good starting point, but when you want to fine tune up or down, these are the selections you have. Now we're not going to have any more time in the next day or so because we have another project running parallel to this, but we're going to hopefully at some real future time, near, maybe even go to 235, I don't know. You see, every time you add 10 thousandths, what happens, 10 thousandths on a hole like this is a small dimension. On a big hole, it adds a lot more swept area, so we may want to go in 5 thousandths increments. But anyway, this was the end of the first day. We're real happy with the results. The motor runs absolutely just great. We're looking forward to having a club flying session this weekend, get a couple other people to fly it. But in the meantime, we have another project we're working on parallel to this project. We're never working on one project. There's no such thing in this shop. This is the parallel project that we're working on. We're working on a Jet 65, getting the Venturis tuned to our little personal needs. But the other project we're working on for John Brodak, and we've put a lot of hours into this already. Tom Hampshire's done the most of the real work. This is, well, let's take a look at this, because we're going to go setting up the plan. Actually, we're going to do it today. Okay, and we'll read this carefully. Anyway, this is nice. Everything that John does, they give you a really nice, efficient set of directions. And we really have high hopes. Now what we're going to do is put this in our test plane. The muffler that they supply with it. And I think we'll even get out there, even though it's raining today, we're going to get out there and hopefully get this broken in, so the weekend flying session should be, we can get a couple, well, maybe we can get both planes out there if we're lucky. This is a really nicely made 40 size motor. You can see how nice the castings are. Now it's a Schnurly ported motor. There's no baffle on the piston. It's like a relatively small Venturi, and I think Tom Hampshire was the one that came up with that final size. Beautifully made. Really nicely made. Anyway, the next step on this is we're going to get this. We have two of these, by the way. One of them is going to be for Ken Clapson, who he just wants me to break one in for him, but we'll get the first one broken in as soon as it stops raining out there. We'll get our old reliable test bench out and see just how these are going to come. I think they're going to be great. I think this is really adding a nice new motor to the matrix that we all have in the hobby industry. It looks like the rain has finally ended. Finally. This is the only time it's rained in the last 3 months. We've had a 3-month terrible drought, hot weather. Now we want to run these engines in. Boy, do we get good use out of this test bench, and we'll get good hours of use out of it today. We're done with this break-in. We're going to try to get it into our profile test plane. It has clamp mounts, so it'll be very easy to get the motor in and out. And see how that's going to, well, maybe you get out to the field tomorrow with it. We have plenty of test props to take up to the field once we get this into our test plane. And we want a prop with a very light load to break it in. Something a little under-propped. Let's see which one we have. Maybe one with a 4 pitch. These have a real low load, the 11.4s. Very low pitch. Put a light load on the motor while we're breaking it in. Tom Hampshire, who did a lot of the work on this engine, the development work. When I spoke to him, he recommended and of course it says it in the directions too, to run it 1 to 2 minutes at a time with no muffler and a light load prop. This is about the lightest load prop we have in our little inventory here. And run it relatively rich, on and off, fast, slow, so everything seats in. And because we're a PowerMaster dealer, the only fuel we really use or recommend using is exactly what they recommend in the direction, GMA blend PowerMaster fuel. It's 22% oil, half AA caster, half clots. It says in the directions, 4 turns out would be a good starting point. And in this case, what we want to do is get some fuel in here. Make sure everything's lubricated. There's probably, I'm going to guess, some after run oil in there. See if we got a good battery here. Dead. As recommended, we run it about 2 minutes, just pinch off the fuel tubing, let it cool off. We got plenty other projects to work on here. We'll come back to this exactly like it says in the directions, and when we're all done, this will be ready to mount on our test plane. I've been running it in 2-minute cycles, letting it cool down. What I want to do is run it one more time, and then run it once with the muffler on, get it kind of adjusted, and then we'll put it right in the test plane. Like the directions say, it really is important to let it cool down between cycles. Now we're ready to put this in the test plane. We're going to get back downstairs, try to get this done. Tomorrow might be a flying day. It looks like the sun's coming out. Thanks to the fact that we have clamp mounts in the plane, we don't have to booger up the engine or make any Dremel marks on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to have, I'm going to put out a little email later to try to get the people in the club, some of the local people to come down and try it out. The way you know if you've got a successful product is when you get a lot of good input from a wide variety of people, various skill levels. And with the clamps, this couldn't be easier. Point to remember after this is broken in, these are all metric screws. They're 2.5mm screws. I just want to make sure that they're all tight. If you're going to check the head screws in a star pattern, they will seem relatively tight. The little sleeve that holds the needle valve, make that a little bit tighter now. We leave it loose on a bench just so it's easy to poke your finger in there. And I want to clean this up. Absolutely a one flip start motor, real nice. The only thing I would think you might want to do, in fact I'll do it right now, the washer, this is a minor point, the back of the washer I'd like to see some serrations on that just so it grabs the prop a little better. And it bolted right up beautifully. Now we have an adjustment what I would recommend if anybody does a profile, use those little Brodak tank brackets. I didn't have any today. I set this up. So this zip tie little thing that we were using for the jet tanks will have to do for right now. Anyway, that looks like it's ready to go. Now what I'll do is I'll oil the hinges. Just make sure everything, this has been sitting out in the garage for 6 months, just make sure everything's A-okay. And this looks like this is going to be one nice little running motor, and we'll do some props tomorrow. We've invited some other people. Tom Hampshire may show up. All people that can add something to our little database. And we hope to get some other people to test flight a plane and let us know what they think. Boy, there's just no end to the time I'm happy that we have that on a profile. That just allows us to do things that otherwise would be impossible or really crude, drilling all these extra holes in the plane. It looks like we're going to have a heck of a day. After all that thunder and lightning and rain and breaking in the engine, it finally is paying off. We're going to try to get to the field and get as many flights as we can on the Brodak 40, so that by the end of the weekend we can put a little report out on our website. Maybe some do's and don'ts, or what props work, or if we encounter anything that would amount to be something that would help a new flyer. And if we don't learn anything, hey, it'll be a very short report. Now we get up here super early, and Kajeski already beat us to the field. Looks like we're going to have some nice air for doing this Brodak test day. He's got his Sato 72 Cardinal. As soon as he gets done taking a flight or two. Actually, we have a good part of the day to do this, so. This is one of the really impressive planes. One of the things that really impressed me this whole winter, Mike's building of this plane. How quickly it trimmed out without any problems. I don't even think he's had to shim the tank. We kind of used all the information from the old plane. That was real handy. But the main thrust of today is to get some other people, including Mike, to we're just going to try to get a lot of flights on a Brodak 40, see what props we can try. We got some different glow plugs to try. And maybe by the end of the weekend post out a little do's and don'ts out on the internet. Like I said, that could be a real short report, a real long report. We don't know yet. Alright, so let me get the equipment set up while Mike's taking his first flight. Among the things we want to accomplish today, I want to have Mike put a couple of flights on this, get his feedback. This has got the 220 Venturi in it. And we're going to hopefully, within a week coming up, get it open at 230, 225. But we're at 220 right now. I'm only concerned with the brake. Now what I'm doing more than anything else is I want to take this footage home and listen. And there we go. That's just about right, even on the first needle setting. Now we're going through some dead air here, and I don't care about that, but I want to hear that motor run. I want to see if it's equal, upright, and inverted. A lot of times when you make the Venturi bigger and bigger, what happens, it exposes the shim being out a little bit, the tank shim. And having two pilots here, one of the things we can do is just fly back-to-back flights. We won't miss 1 minute. And in a matter of a couple hours, we can burn up a gallon of fuel and get all the feedback we need. We won't be limited to my fatigue factor, which is about maybe less than a gallon of flow. I just turned 57 yesterday. Can you believe that? 57. Unbelievable. Oh, nice. Okay, so this is right where I want it. That looks like it's shimmed pretty close. And now the only thing left is the time. We want to get the time. I want to see that we're using an ounce a minute. I wish we even had a little breeze here. It's even too calm. It's like dead air here. But this will be a good day to put this stuff to the test. It's hot. There's no air to help it through. Love the way this paint job looks in the air. Mike Kajeski. Anyway, we've got some of the other club members already arrived here for our little introductory day. And we'll get some test pilots flying momentarily. We're done flying the big planes for a while. Air is still stone dead. We're going to start the test off. We have a Brodak tank that's been squashed down in the back so it fit in one of our other test planes. Tank is not real important. We're going to start exactly as it came from John Brodak, with the exception of the prop. This is an old Top Flight 10.6, because I always used to use this as my square one prop, so I can find out. We have some other props here. We have a whole box of them. In fact, we got a couple test pilots here already. It looks like we're going to have enough props to test today. And we'll just wait our turn in the order. Test planes. Tom Hampshire's test plane is a, what's the name of this plane?
I don't know nothing. You're
See,
right.
I don't know nothing.
We don't know nothing special. And I didn't rob that bank.
We got two of them here. We got a whole club of them.
I didn't rob that bank, Your Honor. It was a savings and I mean, I had nothing to do with it. No,
now, did you break this one in yet?
No, unrun.
Okay, so we'll get a Ruben wanted to know about the break-in. I got another new one here, so if you want to break another one in.
That this thing is going to take.
You got clamps holding it in.
Nothing. Yeah, this is.
That's handy. I like that.
This is demoted to test bed service now. It's an engine mule, not a motor.
Yep. Okay.
Or, serious airplane.
I got the whole box of props there. Every prop I could get that was about the appropriate size.
Okay.
Now,
I didn't push.
When I broke this in, I was running it just like the directions say, 2 to 3 minute cycles.
Yep.
That what you like to do?
Yep.
And I left the plug in it that came with the motor.
Read the directions. Okay.
I did exactly what directions say.
That's something that I truly believe is necessary. Mechanical wear.
And with the muffler off.
It's not what breaks a motor in. What breaks it in
the heat cycle.
Is thermal cycling.
Thermal cycles, okay. Do we have any other mufflers, any tongue mufflers or anything that'll fit
I
this?
haven't made any up.
The maroon test plane's going to be a little heavy with that muffler, but that's okay. I don't have it. What's the spacing on the bolts?
This is what I have a sketch of it at home. This thing weighs 32, maybe 32 and a half ounces with oil soak.
Okay.
That's a terrible test bed because you can.
That's 49.
That's what you want.
Yeah, you want to put it under a load.
That worked testing this thing was Doug Benedetti's green Nobler.
Is he going to be here today, or?
He's water skiing.
We should have taken his plane.
What's the matter with it? Oh, he'll give it to me as soon as
you know, it'd be a good test. Too bad Ruben doesn't have. Now, see, if he had clamp mounts in that plane, we could take that motor out and put this one in. Ruben, can you hold this for Tom? All right, this is the first time he's firing up the motor. This is for, in all purposes, the break-in. And they have machine oil. What kind of oil did he put in from the factory? I was smelling that oil yesterday.
I couldn't tell, so I filled it up with ATF.
Okay, it smelled like ATF to me, yeah.
Well, this one will, because I gave it.
Oh, you had extra, yeah.
Oh, yeah, lots.
You always want to burn out that oil before you actually get a one flip start. Notice he's flipping it backwards. That's a good idea, too, because it will pop. Mine broke right in a matter of an hour, less than an hour. Mine, 4 turns on a needle was a lot. It took about 3.
Yeah.
It lets plenty of fuel in there, though. Those first couple of spins around, you don't want it to really start on the first flip, especially if you don't have any ATF in it.
Nah.
All right, 4 was a little,
no hurry.
Probably 3.5 or 3 would be better. Let it fill with oil, that's all. Okay, now what? Let's see how clear the oil is.
That's good.
Oh yeah.
That's all. That's as much black as you'll see.
That's it. Mine was clean. I thought it was.
Yeah. No,
like
that's
a broken
as much black as you'll see.
Look at a piston fit on that. That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice quality. You gotta watch the screws are 2.5 millimeter. You know how many guys are gonna grab a 440 wrench and destroy them? Yeah. 2.5 millimeter screws.
That's another thing. I see guys who run a new motor in, and as the screws seat, it takes a while.
Right.
Never. I don't. The one that was on the table at Brodak's had this screw boss broken out.
Ah.
Guaranteed, 100% of the time, that's from torquing the engine while it's hot.
Yep.
Take it home, put it in the freezer overnight, then retorque the head bolts.
Or at worst, let it be cool.
If you have to, if you just gotta, then dribble a little fuel on it, let it set in the shade for 15 minutes and get it cold that way.
Right.
But boy.
How big is the Venturi on these?
This is, I didn't measure this one. What I spec'd after I made one and sent it back was 305.
305, okay.
Now that's a gimmick too, because this engine...
It's much bigger, the bore is much bigger. The bore on a needle valve, the diameter is big.
No, it's 164.
It's 160? It looks big, maybe.
No, it was 164.
Okay.
The thing is, for the typical converted RC engine, that's going to close at 55, 58, 60 after top center is when the crank port closes.
Right.
This thing closes at 45 after center. This is not designed to run hard. It's designed to chug. You hook it up to the plow and make it set your cornfield up. So this thing has much higher manifold vacuum than the typical FP.
And the
LA,
case
Weber
is a lot
32.
smaller. The volume inside the case
the volume is smaller, but it's primarily that crank timing. So you want a much bigger Venturi than you'd have on a converted RC engine to go with the excess manifold vacuum that George made for us. And
now George did a lot of this timing thing, right?
George, if you're looking, thank you. There's nobody in this hobby that doesn't owe you a vote of thanks for this thing. Whether they fly one of these things or not. We finally...
Well, you all do, because the people it's going to keep in a hobby and bring in a hobby that aren't going to go crazy trying to make other motors converted.
The guys that aren't going to come in and try to convert a combat engine and wind up 2 years later saying, man, I couldn't fit. I'm playing softball, or I'm going bass fishing, or whatever it is. Here it is, plug and play.
Now, while that's cooling off, you want to get a flight on the one that we got it broken in?
Whatever.
Fuel it up and let me get it needled. Everything's on. It's ready to go. All right, well, we're going to get a flight on this. Now, this one's already broken in yesterday. It should be pretty much ready to go. Okay, Mike's going to be the first test pilot. Tom's needling the motor. Ruben's already bought a motor. First flight with a 10.6 top flight. This is our square one prop. It's got a nice muffler, nice and quiet on it anyway.
Two laps at 4:58. So.
All right, so 6 pitches out.
We know we got to take either a 6 pitch goes away, or we find a set of 90-foot lines and an acre of ground to fly it in.
Okay, so go to the box, pick me a prop. All right, we know 6 pitches is going to be a little on the high side.
I would go right there for the next one.
11-4 for the next flight?
Let's try.
Okay, there you go.
Right there. Yeah, that'll do. We know we want to, at some point during the day, we know that.
That's right.
Simple, cheap, tough, and available.
$3.
Yeah.
Do we have any Brodak props in here? Anything we can test?
I have enough that we can test with.
Okay. All right, we got a couple in here.
You got a couple, yeah.
And we got some APCs. Okay.
I don't know what this one is.
All right, we'll pull them out here. Step 1 in our test.
But not you,
the 6 pitch was a little fast. Not a little, it was a lot fast. Tom's putting on an 11.4, a top flight 11.4 for the next test. And luckily we have plenty of student pilots here.
We're hoping that Kajeski doesn't find out that the North won the war and Lincoln freed the slaves.
Stay out there, Mike.
Back down. Keep it
We'll double your salary. You get 2 Pepsis instead of 1. Oh, the 11.4 had too low of a pitch. The plane's going too slow now. We don't like that. So what we're going to do is start going through the props that have 5 inches of pitch. It's starting to look like this motor's the happiest with a 5 pitch.
The best one is here and that boom, but it ain't easy. It's
What prop is this, 11.4?
10.5 master
10.5 master air screw. We're closing in on the fact this motor wants 5 inches of pitch. It didn't take us but 100 flights.
No, I know where we're going when we're going to check 1,000,000 props and we're going to come out at an APC 10.5, 4.5.
I think so. Now Tom's still running this without the muffler. Still heat cycling it. Motor sounds happy without the muffler. Now keep in mind, any muffler kills some of the power, so there's always a compromise between how much muffling you want and how much power you're willing to pretty much trade away. I'm sure Brodak is going to have available very soon some tongue mufflers for these motors, which will be a little louder, a little lighter, just another tuning tool. And I'm sure some of the aftermarket suppliers will be making it the equivalent things too. It's only a matter of time. Always keep in mind when you run without any muffler, the motor will always use a little more fuel. It'll always run a little cooler too. And if your first day out on the field is you're not subject to noise restrictions if you're out in the woods or something, well, far from housing, you basically could run it probably the whole first day without any muffler just to let everything heat cycle in better. This looks like this prop's working pretty decent. I think the next one we have a 5 pitch at 10.5, and we got the APCs to try later. I hear some more test pilots coming over here from the other circle. the first flight on Tom's motor. Now we're going to take the muffler off the other test plane. Is for sure, for these early runs, it's a lot better without the muffler, which is typical of Tom's going to take the muffler off. And it's so hot. What do you think? It's 99 degrees out here?
It's pushing 90 already.
Oh yeah, it's going to get cookie by this afternoon.
My watch is on stopwatch mode, but my guess is it's probably 10 or 10:15.
I gotta look. I still am on stopwatch mode.
You're playing with it.
Okay, we'll run it without the muffler in this heat.
Here's another little one of Wendy's torture tests.
Yeah.
Get the schlump to take off the muffler while it's hot.
Yeah. You know what's nice about the video camera? It never gets red hot after a run. First off, how cool is this? We got Mr. Widowmaker out here. What'd that run go, about 15 minutes, Rube?
Yeah.
And then he thinks he's allowed to go sit in the shade. You stay out there till you get a stunt pattern out of this.
He did not realize.
You did not realize. You volunteer to test motors, you must test motors. There's no saying I'm tired and I'm thirsty.
You must finish.
You get that Gatorade when this plane is totally tuned in today.
Yeah.
Ruben, you're looking to lose weight anyway. Just stay out there. You'll sweat it off.
This is fine. It was perfect in the beginning of the speed.
Nah, the muffler's restricting it too much for this hot weather.
For the state of...
for the state that we have in.
Break-in. It's
just run it a little richer and let Ruben out. But fly it, Rube.
I wanted to slow out. Every time I slow
we're going to fatten it up for you.
We're going to fatten it up. Oh, there goes the muffler. Oh, no. Pick it up barehanded. No. Put it in Ruben's pocket of his shorts. Sneak. You ever have a guy with low rider shorts? You go right in the crack of his rear end with that muffler, boy. That's the way to do it. All right, come on. We got testing to do. This is not a hobby, Ruben. This is a sport, man. Get busy.
There you go. I like that word, sport.
We're gonna see if we can avoid losing the screw. So yeah, that's nice and hot.
It's easier to just pull the back off, and you wouldn't have lost whatever nose weight it is. But whatever.
Tom has discovered one of the secrets of testing motors. You get Mike to fly the plane when it's hot. Keep them cooking out there. All right, now what is this? A BYNO 10.5?
Brodak, yeah.
A Brodak BYNO 10.5. Okay. Stevie, give him a launch.
No, I got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
It's a 40.
Okay, this is the BYNO test. No muffler. Now, there's a couple of things to remember. This looks like it's a ballpark. The prop choice is really a personal thing between the pilot and the plane. As long as it's not way under pitch, which the 11.4 was, or way over pitch like the 10.6 top flight is. So we right away established the two boundaries, and now we're kind of looking in between for something that fine tunes in. Got the motor run just right here. Speed looks pretty comfortable. And by having a lot of people fly the plane, of course, we stay in the shade and they're out in the sun. So see, the shade is here. And then actually, Mike, we've got 6 or 7 people flying today, so we're not going to get fatigued with the heat. Because usually in an 8-hour day here, you can really get burned out. And the air is dead, you got to move the maneuvers. But it's a good day to test. Now, once it gets cool, the cooler it gets, things always get better instantly. If we were down in the 70-degree range, this would be stun heaven, but I'm sure it's over 90 right now. We're roasting out here. Nobody's ordered coffee. But it really gets to put the stuff to a test right away. Anyway, Tom's going through the props again, and we're going to try them both on both test planes. We have the muffler off the red test plane, and what we're doing is just doing back-to-back flights, one right after another. You can see he's got a back up. We have no air at all, just hot, dead, sticky air. Well, the one thing we learned right away is they run a lot better without the muffler in really hot weather. Tom is going to make a muffler piece for the back with a bigger hole. The muffler's really nice and quiet, that's for sure, but when it's hot, it is on my thermometer over there, 99 degrees, and it's supposed to go over 100 today. And we're basically just roasting out here. And Tom's getting to fly his 4-cycle, 72 Sato, Cardinal in between flights while we're just hanging. But we're running out of shade, baby. Shade is getting to be in a premium here. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to go on with this. It is really, we are on some of the hottest weather I've ever had in Jersey. So at the end here of about 3/4 of a gallon of fuel, we're using 10% GMA PowerMaster. Looks like the two things for the really, really hot weather is just leave the muffler off. And any 5-pitch prop. Pretty much all of the 5-pitch, the 10-5s all worked well. Now in colder weather, needless to say, some of the 4s might work. It's going to come up is make a little modification to the back of the muffler. Keep in mind, though, that this first day, it really, really was hot. That is really a significant thing. In any motor, even, you know, a pipe motor, a 4-stroke, or a jet, we have them all here on the field at the same time. They all suffer somewhat in the hot weather. But for a first day of testing, we've got some good basic numbers now, and when somebody calls up and they want to have some basic information on it, I think we can help them. Before we leave, we're going to hopefully get one flight at Tom's. He's still working on a tank shim on this. Sato 72 powered Cardinal.
The canopy details, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's a beauty.
Oh my God.
Tom has a neat little gizmo. He starts it at idle and then just opens up the throttle to fly whatever the flying speed for that flight is going to be. Kind of cool. Little gizmo to open and shut the throttle. I don't know about you, but we're moving back into the shade. It is really hot out here. I can't believe we're out here. I have this little thermometer in my toolbox, and it is over 100. And we are out of here after this flight. This is just unbelievable. We're roasting, we're toasting. Wish we lived up there with Ken Clapson where it got cool in the afternoon. Now Tom has been working on a tank shim on this because he's limited in where the tank box is. He really can't shim it as much as he'd like, but he has made some progress. And he made a tank, this is a metal tank with a clunk. just to see how that was going to work. We don't know if that's going to work yet. We'll see when he lands. Again, built right from a Cardinal kit with the laser cut parts. Sato 72. This is a 30. Beautiful day. Rich Jacobone's out here with his Stuka already. I want to get a couple more runs on the bar stock 65 before I start to really run it the way I want to run it, higher up on the RPM band. I just figure an extra gallon of fuel at 10.1, 10.2 wouldn't hurt it, especially in this hot weather. And we're going to wait and see if Tom is supposed to be here with the rest of the Brodak test stuff. And then we're going to basically repeat what we did yesterday, get as many of the people that are here, try to get a couple flights on that and just get some feedback and any other little modifications we can figure out that might be worthwhile. Here here we are, we're an hour into the day already, and it has gotten hot. Unbelievable how hot this has been. Tom is usually not the first one here. I hope he makes it today. Tom is one of the flyers. We call them the flyers that have their coffee, their breakfast, relaxes, comes out here. We're out here with the chickens. It's dead air. It's not even worth recording the flights here. The air is so dead. Hard to believe. And hot, 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 hot. We're about at the 2-gallon mark with the 65, and it has really impressed me with being it's much friendlier than the motor that was in here at the net. It's much easier to needle, much solider, and it's turning a 13-inch prop, not a 12, so that's a real nice performance gain that we've gotten since the Nationals.
You're not from around here. Well, you speak well. You used to be from someplace else, right?
I was not born here.
Where were you born?
Poland.
Poland, okay.
Poland? Good man.
Bertnowski over there. Kaczewski over there.
Another day of testing. The next day we're going to be out here with all the APCs. We haven't run the APCs yet, but pretty much one of the props that really works well is the 10.5. The Brodak BYO works well, the Rev Up 10.5, and the Zinger 10.5. Seems like all the 10.5s just come into their own. We have a couple of I got a master air screw, and I have this whole two stalks of APCs, but for today we wanted to keep it simple. We wanted to keep it to the wood props, and Tom is going back home today to make up a part for the muffler with a bigger outlet on it. We'll see how that works next time we get to do a session. In the meantime, this has just been about the nicest 2 days we've had here at the field. It just doesn't get a lot friendlier than this. This right from the get-go was very friendly. Now, we haven't even changed the plug that came with the engine. I didn't want to start doing anything until there was a reason. I wanted to try to keep it as simple as possible. The needle valve, if you open and break it in at around 4 turns, it winds up being between 3 and 2 when you wind up using it on 10% fuel. So far it looks like it's a very fuel efficient engine. We're getting, and this is a 4.5 ounce tank, by the time it's a 5 that's got the back end squashed down. It was running plenty long, if anything too long. We probably could go down to a 4 ounce tank here without any problem at all, which is nice. Again, we don't want to even consider using any fuel right now except Power Master GMA blend. That's the fuel that always seems to work the best for us. And a special thanks to John Gajewski, who donated this test plane to our cause about a year ago, I think. And we have certainly gotten a lot of use out of it. And we're going to be using it every day this week, weather permitting. As we expected, 2 days into the Brodak 40 test, we're sold out of motors. So we're basically going to put that on hold for a little while here. We have some projects to work on in the shop that I think will be interesting for you to share with us. Love this little Ducati. I think Chicky likes the Ducati too. I apologize to anybody. We're starting a waiting list, and from the waiting list, people that have already paid a deposit, we're going to ship from the date, and I'll try to assign everybody a number so that on the next shipment, look at this bird. You want to be on a waiting list to go to the Ukraine? Yeah, you sure do. Anyway, Joy, I'm really enjoying having this little motorcycle. This is really cool, and everybody knows I love Ducatis, even though I can't afford one. Anyway, got a little repair to do for one of the club people here. Everybody knows I make gear every day. I use some of the gear resin to do a repair on this. This is the cub. You've seen that cub with the smoke system, the giant cub. And it's the thing I didn't know, and if I find out one way or another, we're going to know in time, if you can use this system, and it's a fiberglass resin system, to attach to ABS. Now, the problem with ABS is almost nothing sticks to it. I don't know if this is going to stick to it until we do a test, but Frankie wanted me to try to do a test on that, and I guess we're going to know in a couple of weeks, one way or another. I really enjoy seeing his cub fly around and because I do have some, and my father even owned a cub, I do have some stick time in a cub. It is Anisotabria, both of them, wonderful planes to fly, really a lot of fun. And you know, I know this is the kind of job Frankie would have trouble, well, it would be inappropriate for him to do this since he lives in an apartment too, using this kind of resin system. Anyway, we'll see how that holds up. This is some stuff that Fred Cronenwet sent me, and he pulled it off the internet, so apparently there's a site where you can download this. But it's a nice big drawing for anybody that's doing a Miss Ashley. And Doug Moon, by the way, just bought a set of plans to Miss Ashley, so maybe he's going to build one, who knows. Or he'll name it the Miss Moon or something, I don't know. But anyway, this is really the kind of detailed drawing. The things that a drawing like this are really useful for. Ink lines. Coming up with some scale-looking ink lines that don't look like something crazy. Or some of the detailing. You know, maybe the scoops around the inlets, the gear door shapes you could pull off this if you're looking for a unique rudder shape. Some of the things that are scale on Reno Racers, they usually list the credits for the sponsors on the gear doors. This will be a real valuable thing to have if we make another Miss Ashley. And again, because we have molds for everything, that's certainly a choice for the future. But right now, the one we have with that 65 is just running better and better every day. It's actually getting a little boring flying it. There's not much to do. We've opened the Venturi up to 220, and that's about it. We're going to go a little further in the near future, but today we have a special project to work on. Our second Miss Ashley with the carbon wing, we were able to kind of copy this tip shape, which I really like. I'd love to try a plane with a swept, the elevators here, except you get into that thing with the horns. Anyway, I just think this is a really cool looking plane. It's one of my favorites. Some of the little details that are on there. Look at this. For the counter rotating props. This is the bottom view, again, how the gear doors close up. The BF Goodrich, the access panels. the tail wheel retract system. This is the kind of stuff that, and I'm sure it's on the internet, or you could call Fred Cronwet, give him a quick email. He is one of the really generous people in the world. Now look at this. These are the little details. See, he's a scale flyer. Fred's a scale flyer, so this is the kind of little details when you're doing. Now Dave Downey, if Dave Downey were doing a drawing of this kind of little information would be just so helpful. But again, it's on the internet or available from Fred. And I think this really adds a little fun dimension to building a model when you can have the real prototype drawings. And that's even Doug Moon had the little, he had pulled it off the video, the little way that we made the gear doors with the little oleo struts. Cool little stuff from Fred. I appreciate it a whole lot. Coming up, actually we're only about a little over a week away from hopefully getting some flights on this if the weather cooperates. One of the things we still haven't done yet is we wanted to make a stand from PVC pipe tubing so that we could pretty much work on this when it was upside down. Some of the things that have to be done on a regular basis, change the batteries, wiping the plane off, or in some other way, waxing it, polishing it, clean it, or whatever. So I wanted to make that stand up. Now I asked Les Demet if he'd have time today. He may or may not be here, I don't know. Again, his schedule varies. But one of the things I wanted to find out if he could help design up a stand that we could turn this upside down and it would not be resting. See, the problem with this model is there's a lot of little vulnerable parts. We don't want to have any of these parts that are delicate. I'd like to have, the rudders are the worst. They're the most delicate. We want to design up some kind of a little perimeter stand for this that we can turn it over to do work on it, maintenance, or even just, you know, for when it's at the field, you want to turn it over and change the Zetron battery, some little job. I'd also like to make it as compact as possible. So what I've done is, I went down to Home Depot, bought 2 lengths of 3/4 inch PVC pipe, some foam insulation, and a whole bunch of fittings. I just randomly took a handful of every fitting that they had, 90 degrees and tees, and I figured I'd come home and try to design something up here. And if Les comes by later for lunch, we can, hey, I'm hoping we can come up with maybe something that's even a little bit better than this, who knows. Les always seems to be able to add an extra dimension into my modeling. He's such a perfectionist. Anyway, we're going to start working on this. I'm going to cut this up right now and try to make the base plate. This is something, by the way, you can use on any model. It doesn't have to be a scale model. I've seen Frank McMillan has a nice stand. And by the way, Kent Tyser, who makes these, you know, I think about 40 bucks, but I wouldn't quote a price. You could call Kent and he can make one and mail it to you. What we start with is a bunch of elbows and tees. These were the 2 that I just bought a handful of each of them, not having any idea how this was going to work out. And these, believe it or not, are 19 cents a piece in Home Depot. So my first suggestion is if you're going to make one of these racks, just buy a lot. Buy a can of cement. This is the, let's see what they call this, PVC cement. Again, cheap stuff. This whole thing, including 2 10-foot lengths of the pipe, wound up costing about $16, $17. So the first step that I wanted to do is I measured out the plane front to back, and I want to make the equivalent of a box. And that'll be the part that rests on the ground, and then we'll build a box up with appropriate little detents in it, or maybe not. Again, Les will figure that out. That's why we pay him the big money. I make the trips to Home Depot, and he does the design work. It's a good system. He had to just assemble everything dry. In other words, no glue until we have the whole thing done. And then, when we make a final decision, cutting and fitting and changing everything, then one by one we'll glue the fittings together. But I want to try to find a way of leaving 1 or 2 unglued so I can take this apart for storage purposes. Again, the material is not real expensive. Even if you screw it all up, just put it in a garbage bag, get another $17 out and go make another one. But it's handy for working on it. It's handy, like even today, what I wanted to do is put another coat of wax on it. Well, how do you wax it on the bottom when it's on that table? If I had that stand, I could flip it. It'd be very easy. If you put a new blade in your saw, it'll cut real nice chips without melting and burning it so it sticks. Everybody's got a jigsaw, I would assume, that builds models. But it'll chunk out real nice like that, and then you don't have that problem where the pipe, once you get halfway through, it kind of molds together because you've melted your way through. A sharp blade cuts, a dull blade melts its way through. Okay, the first thing we did was make this little perimeter kind of thing where the leg, now I can cut these, make it smaller. Can't really conveniently make it bigger without making it bigger pieces of tubing, but this is supposed to be, or we'll see if it lays out to be, a base plate for what we need, because we can constantly adjust these. And by the way, I realized right away what I should have done is buy about 5 pieces of this so I could cut up and have spare pieces. And it's a good idea. These things are so cheap, it's ridiculous. So I really cheated myself. I thought 10 feet would be enough. Well, this is a big model, and when I made the measurements, 38 by 20, wow, you use up a lot of that tubing right away. The plan was to make this much higher and bigger than it has to be, and then when we're all done trying to figure out how high we want it, if we want it, we can lower it equally because it's not glued together. But I tried to make these heights 18 inches just so it would sit up off the ground. You didn't have to bend over if you were up there wiping a plane off or whatever. Again, we're going to find out. We're trying a lot of configuration, and we ran out of tubing. I'm going to have to go to Home Depot and get some more tubing. You can see that's all that's left of 2 10-footers here. So for lesson 1, it pays to get extra tubing. You're gonna, especially at Home Depot, you can always return it and get plenty of fittings. This is totally committed to the idea that this is going to be perfection.
I should be totally committed.
Totally committed is more like it. He's got me trimming 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch on this.
Not yet, but I will shortly.
Anyway, we did go to Home Depot to show you. We bought 2 more lengths of pipe. So the original estimate that Wendy made was off by what, 20 feet?
Oh, what the heck?
20 feet.
Close enough.
20 feet, not enough pipe. What the hell? Okay, we bought a thing of this pink foam for, I don't know, $6 or something. Les has some cool ideas, as always, and this is why I pay him the big money, as he puts a big dent in the wing at a B-17 here.
32 inches.
Okay. Now the funny thing is, this looks real easy. It looks simple and easy until you go to do it.
No, once we get the neck.
Oh, he's got to make patterns and pictures and
32
Chicky.
inches, O-A-L.
But believe me, when we're done...
The width, I think we figured is good.
You figured 32?
No, that's the overall length, front to back.
We want to catch it on the top of that. So what we're trying to do is catch it in front of the prop, but not in front of that.
30 and a half, and the ID is roughly 28
Width is perfect. It's going to make it that way?
Now 32, I'll show you. That'll put this...
Yeah, we don't want to come anywhere near those rudders. Stay away from those rudders. Famous last words. These are vulnerable, believe me. Somebody's going to kick those or...
Well, see, the nice part about those is they will fall within the outer framework, I think.
You shouldn't even be close to them. I mean, if you have a choice, stay plenty far away from the rudders. If we have a choice.
What I'm saying is the U will be here.
Right.
All right.
And we'll be padded, so...
And your framework will come here. It'll be outside the rudders.
Okay. That might be dangerous.
What?
I don't know. Well, let's see. Look, we can always cut it. The objective here is we always try to make it bigger than it has to be and cut it down instead of trying to add pieces. And we're going to find out in time as Les gives us the final dimensions here.
So what did I say? 32 OAL.
We can always make it a little bit smaller, but it's going to be a pain making it bigger. We have the 2 fuselage supports in place. Les is over there calculating out how he wants to do this wing support. Now the objective here is we can always raise and lower the whole thing by cutting or making these pipes longer. We can always attach this to the ground at the field with just the way we attach a stooge. We want to have a lot of choices here. And we can take it apart into 3 sections: top piece, bottom piece, and the 4 interconnecting tubes. That's the theory so far anyway. We'll find out. The ordinary, look, I'm trying to record this for posterity. Ordinary pipe foam, Home Depot stuff, very inexpensive. And we're just laying this out while Demet fine-tunes it.
Thousands of dollars for research and development.
R&D on this project's killing me.
Just unbelievable. Problem. Look where the props are.
Well, we're not going to run the engines in here anyway.
All right.
Now what we got to do, you've got to drop the part where the fuselage is by how much, an inch?
What?
Measure it under each wing. Just measure under each wing. We drop the fuselage part. Oh no, you know why? It's not upside down now.
No, you're right.
You're right.
So
all right.
we'll try.
Boy, this is getting more complicated than I thought it was.
Well, you got a different set of numbers.
Yeah, we got to have it one way or the other. Okay, you win.
But
up there, it's really nice and easy to work on. Another thing too, if we wanted to use this table from time, we could shoot some screws into the table. This would hold it up there where you'd be working on it.
If you ran a bungee around there.
Yeah, exactly. One bungee cord.
It together,
right, that would do it.
It ain't going anywhere.
That would do it. Okay, we're resting. Now you got to figure out the dimension. An inch under each wing. You know what? 2 layers of pipe foam on each wing. Put another layer of pipe foam on each wing. I bet that'll do it.
All right, well, we'll give it a
just for a start. In this lesson, I both decided we want to shorten this piece. That's why we did it all in take-apart fashion.
And in the back, too.
And in the back.
I'd really like to bring it closer together.
So, give me a dimension in the back, and we'll make these two pieces with all new piping. And what that does, that holds it right in. It'll almost kiss the fuselage side. That'll be nice. That'll work.
How are we doing stability?
Yeah, no, that's good. And see what we did, just temporary. We'll buy some heavier foam. They make this in all different sizes, but this is, we just need a couple extra pieces. Even if you left it like that and just glue it in with a couple of drops of glue, that'll work. Okay, now with the 2 pieces, they're shorter now. We got about 3/4 of an inch of clearance front and back. I'll buy the bigger padding. That's no problem. Don't even attach any of the padding permanently. I'll get that tomorrow on the way, back from Home Depot. We got to marry up. Now the most important thing is to pull these pieces out and make the bottom exactly the same, so everything's 90. I can see it's not 90 from here. The bottom's bigger than the top.
Well, that just.
That's nothing though.
Stability.
Yeah, that's nothing.
For popping it apart, we want it to.
We want to be able to pop it apart. That's for sure. We're really closer than I thought we'd get in one session here. This is really pretty good. All right, so you want to glue the top parts together first?
Let me ask you something. We glue all these joints, okay?
We glue the whole top and then make the bottom match the top.
This. I'll tell you why. Imagine you take the airplane out, you take this whole thing, and you know how we say we take it apart?
Yeah.
The top from the bottom.
Right.
You take the legs off. That's 4 pieces gone, right?
Okay.
Now you have a top and a bottom. You take this whole thing, rotate it 90 degrees so your prongs are laying flat inside the... You see what I'm saying?
That's overkill. There'll be enough room for this.
Well, I'm just saying.
I can picture. I can picture. This can go anywhere. This can go on the roof of the Windstar with a bungee cord. You know, even if you didn't take it apart, it would look hokey, but I could put that on the on the roof, okay, even in one piece. Just cool. One bungee cord.
You're cool.
Plus, maybe it would be cool. You're riding down, people would be afraid of you. They'd be afraid to pass you. They'd think you're a lunatic or something. They'd think that now. What am I talking about?
Yeah, right.
All right, so let's pull it apart and glue it, and then if it's wrong, we'll go buy some more pipe. Right. You like my attitude, huh?
Yeah, that's sure.
Now the gluing operation was a little bit, what would you call it, intense? Anyway, you have to kind of make sure that as you glue it, that everything stays at 90.
The best possible thing is that it's done.
Yeah, well, we did do the whole bottom, 90 degrees, then glued these all in. These 4 things are loose so we can take it apart. Then did the whole top as 2 units and then just plugged in the 4 pieces. The next thing we're going to do the foam. We don't need the foam today because I'm going to buy oversized foam. I'll hit Home Depot tomorrow on the way to the post office, and that is about as good as it gets. That was a good session today. And this, by the way, would be handy to have if you had the Typhoon. I bet you could put the Typhoon right in here.
Virtually any airplane.
Any plane. The idea is when we turn it over, I want to be able to change the Zetron batteries or work on or just the constant waxing, wiping, checking, whatever, because we're going to, in the next couple of days, we're going to be running the engines I want to get as much running and fine tuning, get them to the idle right, and we've already done some of that, but I still want to do more. That's plenty solid. I mean, we're not building a house here.
Right.
I think it's gonna be fine. And we can take it apart anytime you want. Just pull.
Just how simply.
Yep.
It'll come
This is Les's idea. He gets the full credit for this take apart. He says, "Who needs Paul Walker? We have take apart stuff here." Okay. I'm thinking a drop of silicone or something on those so they don't stick. Yeah, just make it easier when you go to pull it apart.
Right.
And then that'll sit right in the van.
Come out of the top too. So
that's good. Step on this was I bought some, and this is the next day, we bought some, it fits over 1-inch copper pipe, and I bought some end caps just to protect that. Next time I get to work on this, we have a lot of other projects in the shop right now. What I want to do is I want to put the heavier foam on here and then reverse the plane, get a perfect balance on that. But right now, one of the things that we've been working on, when Mike Kajeski built his Cardinal, he wanted to allow himself the option of putting in a Tiger 60 and a Sato 72. Now he's flown a couple of gallons of fuel with the 72, and it's time we want to take the 72 out, put the 60 in, so he can make a logical, compare one to the other. He personally likes the Tiger 60. He loves the Sato 72, but if you have both, you're always better off. So as soon as he gets here with his plane, we're going to start doing what'll amount to be, I hope, a very easy retrofit. Because when we built the plane, we allowed most of the clearances, I think, except for the tank shim. For the Tiger 60, we're just going to have to cut the little hole in the muffler, and if we make another cowling, we already have the mold for that. It won't be a big deal to make another one. For Mike to get here. Look, check this out. Now, you can't make this stuff up. It's got to just happen. Les, of course, smokes cigarettes. So I look in Chicky's cage, make sure he's got enough food. There's a pack of cigarettes. He flew in, he stole Les's pack of cigarettes. Chicky! You're going to get addicted to tobacco. You're going to get addicted to tobacco. You'll die of lung cancer. He gets here. He says he's going to bring us bagels for lunch. Do I get any bagels?
Perfect metric.
Where are the bagels? Brian, where are the bagels?
In the bag. In the bag.
Where's the bag? I don't see any bag. Did he really bring bagel? Wow, this is a first.
It could be anything.
All right, so we're going to see just how smart you really are,
I had to bring
Kajeski.
something. You paid for them.
I pay for everything when you're around. All right, take everything apart.
Okay.
Story goes, Mike had 6 bagels, and he's still not ready. Now look, Mike, what we did, we glued this shim in. We have to take it out. It's going to be a very delicate job to get that out. Go get the tool.
I'm going to get the big screwdriver.
The Windy Special get the shim out tool.
Where is this again?
It's on the table on the molding shelf out in the garage. What we're going to have to do is, see, the way this is for the 4-stroke, then if he puts a 4-stroke back in here, which I suspect he might, Brian and I both think he's, should leave. The thing is flying great this morning, so he decides he's going to switch motors today. I don't know.
I was happy with it.
Plus, he flew into the end of the runway and didn't break the gear out. Good thing he has those windy, never come out gear in there. Okay, so we have to get that. That's job one, is to get that shim out. Once he gets me the tool. And see, the way we work this, Mike doesn't get a can of beer until the thing is ready. Once it's ready to go, we bench run the motor, then he can have a can of beer, so he'll be working like a mule. We have a big screwdriver filed to a razor point. You break the plywood part out and then just go in there, just like cleaning the sewer. Take one piece at a time. Don't try to take it all out at once. Just pull it. It'll come right out.
If the belt crank comes out, Brian.
If all of a sudden you see the belt crank come out.
Stop.
Imagine if this plane could talk. Yeah, see, it's a hollow shim. So once you get that plywood piece out, we just knock the rest down with a putty knife. Famous last
All
word.
these expensive tools. You gotta have them.
Yeah, just take one piece at a time. Don't try to take it all at once.
We're running into the
Yeah, just use the putty knife to scoop out. That's going to be the only hard part, is getting that shim out. Shim, it's in the... Take the hose and get all this little stuff out of here, too. Now we're right back. We got room for the tank. See what this is? The nose is shortened an inch, and we went into the front of the wing, if you haven't seen that. the lovely video of us doing that. Okay, just vacuum all that schmutz out of there. Now let's fit the tank in. And believe it or not, the hardest thing was getting the tank vents squeezed in, and I thought that was going to be real. I thought we already figured this out. I guess we didn't. Get all 4 of the bolts started, then we want to position the motor. You'll have a little bit of play in there. And it looks like the motor mount bolt is going to go right through his little thing that he had for the throttle control. This is the most fun, Brian. You can never, no matter what you're looking for, it's at the bottom of this box. Always at the bottom. You're moments away from a test run, my boy. Stop mumbling and moaning. You never had more fun in your life.
That's true.
Encourage them to work hard is they don't get to eat the rest of their food if we can't get this motor running in about an hour. Now, if this works good, you know, Chicky said you can have a bagel. Just get it tightened equally, Mike. Don't tighten one bolt, because we got to cut that hole for the muffler next. Quiet, Chicky.
And what we did is try to estimate with a piece of tape.
From the top, we got to cut that muffler hole out. Everything else looks like it's going to fit up the spinner. Do some cowling cutouts and they'll be ready to run.
I think I cut that with a blade.
Get a brand new blade. Nice piece of sharpened tubing. Mike was able to put a hole and it's only off by 1/8 of an inch. Pretty cool, baby. On this baby?
Not yet. The motor wasn't in tight.
The motor wasn't in tight. How unusual. Just make it hand tight for a test run.
No, you just got it. You gotta
tighten it up, baby. Tighten it up. He likes to live dangerous, huh, Bri?
Yeah, I thought about it the last.
I retrofit a lot of motors, but I always tighten the bolts.
The last minute.
He's using it for a leaf blower here. This is the part he loves most of all. All right, she's done. I know you're impressed how quick and easy that went, boy. But now you can go to the field in the morning and fly a 4-stroke in the morning, fly a 2-stroke in the afternoon. You are the man, Mikey. There's no doubt about it. You're gonna make them crazy. But what you do is put out on the Stuka Stunt Works that you're testing the world's first Super Tiger 4-stroke. That'll make all these Goombas crazy. Anyway, you're ready, kid. Got done with even with the test run. Mikey wiped it off. 61 ounces now with the Tiger 60. So all you got to do is wait for Saturday, baby, and we'll be flying along.
There you go.
And we got a bunch of other mufflers because I don't think with the short nose it's going to really want to balance there. We got some of these big heavy mufflers to try. These are about 4 ounces, which would bring it back. And it had a pretty good CG when it had the 4-stroke, so it's the best of all worlds. You can change it right at the field. Not going to be a lot better than that, no matter what you do. Even rain doesn't stop us from testing the Brodak 40. Another ship it's in. This is in Reuben McBride's ship. Stevie's flying it. Where is he? Who knows where he is? Anyway, we're hoping Mike's going to get here. Let's try that Tiger 60. Give that a shot before the rain comes in. It's coming. Now, would you like to come and live in Windy's pond? Tell me the truth. Windy? Who the hell needs Windy? I hate Windy. Hey! Hey, you're supposed to love me, you little froggy. Get out of here. Get, you're gonna get hit by a model plane. The is powered by a Brodak 40. We're not sure. The camouflage is in there pretty good. Need some invasion stripes. Hey! Here's your friend, Mike. Let's fly, baby!
Sorry about that, pal.
Mike hit him with the weed whacker, I think. He's gonna confess to this crime. We want to get a flight on this before the rains come. And what's nice about having a plane, you can switch engines like this. You're never gonna find two people that like exactly the same thing, but I think right now at the field we could just put the other tank shim back in. We saved the tank shim, the motor. We're just trying to get the tank shim. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty close anyway. Doesn't look too bad. CG's a little further back. Mike had to come in on the handle. It looks like it's tracking okay. Dead air, so he's not going to be able to really feel it out. Yeah, it's going through its own air. But anyway, as we come to the end of this tape, one of the things we're hoping to convince Richard Oliver to come up for our fall contest, which is 2 weeks from today. This time next week, we'll be flying the B25, we hope. Hope the weather's going to cooperate. We've had a summer of no rain and all of a sudden 3 days in a row of rain, so not sure what the gods have in store for us, but we are going to get that plane in the air one way or another. Always have the choices. If you have the choices of going back and forth, and in this case, what's nice is we can do it right at the field. Something worth considering. All right, so it definitely needs some nose weight. Right. We'll see if we can get an ounce of nose weight in there for the first. Well, for what else? The handle is on the big side?
The handle's got to work with it. Once we get it running better and get.
No, I think you're going to have to come in on a handle, and we'll get an ounce of nose weight in there to start with. Like trimming any plane, the amount of nose weight that's going to wind up in here, we put an ounce in to start. Because Mike still has this penchant for having a handle bigger than it has to be. He's got the lines pretty well spaced. And I know what he wants. He wants that feeling of security that you're never going to crash the plane. But I just think in this case, this plane flies well enough you won't need that. You could come in on a handle next and try to find some air that isn't dead, and we'll be all set. But it's always a good thing. Now, I noticed over on Stevie McBride's plane, they have clamp mounts. He's got the Brodak 40 breaking in over there. Trying to get a couple of break-in runs on it nice and slow. They've wound up with an APC 10.5, 5.5. That's a relatively heavy plane, but always good the first day out with a new motor. Give it some time. Give it some relatively rich runs. It won't hurt. But tomorrow is our club picnic, and we're supposed to have Nostalgia Combat, and we're over there practicing. I see a couple of the upright engine T-square kind of models. I'm not sure what the name of them are. And if the weather holds for tomorrow, we'll have a great picnic, a little fun fly, and if it doesn't, we lose. And if we can get Richard Oliver to fly up here for the meet at Palisade Park and stay with us for a couple days, we'll have a ball. That just couldn't be better. If you can come to the field with a plane and have a Tiger 60 setup and a 4-stroke setup. See, the reason this is overturning, because he's got the handle too big. This is a typical symptom of when Mike trims a plane. He always likes the handle. Joe Adamusco to some degree too. They love those big handles where you just have to touch it and it moves. Anyway, we'll probably spend another Another couple hours here if it doesn't rain. Trying to get this trimmed a little better. The shim looks close enough that you can at least fly out the day. And we have in the bag the 72, the tank, and the shim. If he decides he doesn't want this, and of course you can always put a Jet 65 side exhaust in here. A lot of choices, and it's having the choices that makes it better than having no choices. And I think in the future you're going to see more and more planes with clamp mount systems where they can just pull the engine in and out without having to Dremel them all up and grind them all up. That looks like the thing of the future, and at least the people that have already got them, Hummel, McBride's got them. Chip Smith has a pair. All right, so the next step is going to be to tune that handle down, get some of that width out of the handle. We're going to shorten up the handle. Now, as cumbersome as this system can be, you never have any problem with the bolts loosening or the bar hitting your knuckles or anything. It's just easier to do it this way. I think it is, and safer. And of course, when you're all done, we have to crimp it with a crimping tool. I'd rather do this than add a lot more nose weight. Yeah, I think you got enough nose weight in there now. We'll find out. Time you adjust the handle, especially in, it's always a good idea to just stay plenty high, have a safe flight, which I'm sure Mike is not going to do. Maybe he doesn't have neutral set here. He doesn't look happy. He missed neutral. You get the final amount of nose weight that you're going to want to have in there, and you get the handle adjusted. Then we'll take the nose weight out and put that big muffler on and try that. We have a big Rossi 61 muffler that weighs about 4 ounces. That'll be just about a swap, an even swap for all the hardware that goes in with the 72.
And the tank seems to be in the right spot.
Yeah, the tank's fine. We lucked out with that, I think. That's just beginner's luck. I only did 1,000 of these, so you're just lucky. The Mike's going to give you a little sneak preview of something we're going to do. What, next weekend we're going to do the pond thing?
Yeah.
We're going to make a gazebo on top of the pond. We've got it's a sneak preview. We better do it before I leave for England too, baby. Now there'll be a point at which Mike will be happy with the handle setting and the nose weight. And the next thing, we're not going to do it today, we'll probably do it next week. We're going to try that big Rossi muffler. They're already flying those combat jobs over there for getting ready, practicing for tomorrow's Nostalgia Combat Contest. Do you believe this? Nostalgia Combat. Yeah, see, the air is so dead, you got to move the loops, but I think he's going to be happy with this. But the point is, even if you're not, in a matter of about an hour, we can have the other motor back in. Always have the choices. And he can get busy now. See, he's been putting off, he thinks he's cute. He's been putting off making the wheel pants until he decided which of the motors he wanted to have in here. Because he can make a lot lower landing gear with the 60. He can make them about an inch shorter. So now he has no excuse. If next time we see this, it has no wheel pants, he's toast. But we really are going to do that pond thing next weekend. We're dedicating the whole weekend to it. Looks like even this guy's got a Brodak 40 in him. Anyway, that looks like it's working pretty well. They got another Brodak 40 out here. dialing this in. They've been flying out all day in the rain, in between the raindrops. And we're going home. It's starting to drizzle again. Well, the day ended with a lot of rain, but hey, that's the way it is. We got done what we had to do. Looking forward to a good day tomorrow. At home, and these are some really cool little wheel collars. These came from Steve Moon. He's manufacturing these now. And we'll try to mention this in our At Club mail out. These are really nice. For future planes, these are just perfectly scaled for like Spitfires and things like that. They don't really come out scale on a B25. A B25 has kind of a flat axle, so we won't be using them on that. But for sure, these are, or for a traditional stunner, something where, what I could picture these even being nice on is when you have fuse mounted gear and you just want to hide the head of the bolt on the side that faces in on the carbon fiber gear. Anyway, manufactured by Steve Moon. We've had some cool little things we've added to Peeps's cage. Howard Rush gave us this from, basically from where he works at Boeing. And of course we have the original picture of Peeps on the front page of the paper. And this great little thing just came from Ron Merrill's wife. I guess they're referring to that he would steal little, and those wheel collars, he could steal Steve Moon wheel collars. So it's permanently mounted to his cage. This is where he's going to have them. He collects all his little things, and as you can see, he's still smoking Les Demet cigarettes after all these years. He just, Chicky, you get presents from Ron Merrill's wife. I don't. Look at this. Look at this. Anyway, we are at the end of this tape. We're coming up on a club picnic, which should be a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun. And a week from now, we are down to where it's a countdown. This time next week, this puppy better be in the air, one way or another. We have waited so long, waited patiently to get our field back, and the day is a week away. We are just ready to go do it. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed the tape and that you'll pass them around, share it.
And Big Duke, Willie, Nicky, and the Duke. And Mitchell watched the perfect pitch, then Parson hurled, talking baseball. DiMaggio, Gil Hodges, Subway baseball. Hubble, Johnny Todd.
And our favorite friend of all,